One really strange day. So I came in this morning to do my higher perspective show and realized I had borrowed my son's truck and I took his keys, but I didn't take my office keys, had to run back. And then, it was crazy. And we wound up starting that one late. And then David just came in and said that I had put the wrong time on this one. I would intended to schedule all these for 5 o'clock. And apparently when I scheduled this particular session, I accidentally put 4. So everything's been screwy today. Anyway, so let's get started anyway. We're going to tonight talk about the physical aspect of emotional healing, which involves breathing, movement, and also healing rituals. I have not posted the handouts for tonight. That I running a little bit behind. I will get them up. There aren't that many handouts, and so you should be able to follow along quite easily. And also, I've created a page at the Modern World Medicine website to put the handouts as well as on the class page, but I haven't uploaded them in either place. I had intended to do videos for this, but I'm leaving for the Nature Sunshine Convention this week. I've got PowerPoints due for the Canadian convention, and I am just behind schedule. So I'm going to have to do the videos that go with this later. Like I said, it's been really crazy. What we're dealing with tonight is a concept called body armor. And what body armor is it's tension that we hold in the body from suppressing emotions and suppressing our natural instincts. And it really comes because we get an ego idea of ourselves. Now, what I mean by an ego idea of ourselves is we have a concept in our brain of who we are, and then we have a reality of our body of who we are. And that conflict between who we really are in our body and who we think we are in our ego creates this disconnection between us and our body that results in us distorting our body, trying to maintain an ego image of ourselves. Like let me give you an example. Suppose I ego image myself that I'm a nice person. Okay, so nice people don't get angry. Nice people don't lose their temper, whatever. So I have to suppress any angry feelings I have or any aggressive feelings I have. And that suppression of those feelings is going to result in alteration of my breathing patterns. It's going to create tension in certain muscles. I'm trying to hold back on the expression of that particular feeling inside of me, that particular impulse inside of me, which results in eventually chronic tension that actually physically distorts the structure of my body. And I realized that we did cover breathing in module 2, so I don't want to go over it in great depth, but this is an important part of this because emotions also have a particular breathing pattern, and therefore learning to do deep breathing, coaching people to breathe deeply, coaching people to consciously breathe is part of what we do in emotional healing because it helps them move through their body armor. And so people need to do abdominal breathing. That is, breathe from their diaphragm so that they're breathing down into their belly and not up in their chest. If you were to attend, this is one of the things I want to get on video so I can demonstrate it and have it up on the web page, is if you have somebody stand up in front of you and you have them breathe into their chest. So they're breathing into here, lifting their shoulders, lifting their chest. You can put your fingers right here and gently push, just very gently push, and they'll just go backwards. If they breathe down into their abdomen and suck in down here like this, So their belly's moving, not their thing, like it's illustrated in the picture. As you inhale, your belly comes out. As you exhale, your belly contracts back in. So when her hand is out, that's inhaling, and the other part is exhaling. When they breathe abdominally, just breathing abdominally, you can do the same thing, push there, and they're solid as a rock. In other words, as you are breathing, where you're putting the focus of your breath, you're putting your energy. If you breathe up into your chest, you are putting your energy up into the area of your ego and your brain and out of your body, and therefore you become top heavy, which means you could easily be pushed around, toppled over, whatever. You breathe down into your guts and you center yourself more down in your body, you become very solid. And it's very hard for people to push you around. So how you breathe and how you hold your body is a reflection of what's going on inside of your ego structure. So a really good thing to do is practice abdominal breathing. If you're not familiar with this, lay on your back, put one hand on your stomach, one hand on your chest, and see if you can breathe deeply, lifting your belly as you breathe in and sucking your belly in as you breathe out. If you can't do this, you probably have a hiatal hernia and you need to work on that. But if you start practicing that abdominal breathing, it helps drop you down into your body and gets you more in touch with what's really going on inside of ourselves. Now, what I talked about in module 2 is the idea that there's this breathing pattern of inhalation, exhalation, and then a pause. And then a pause. The period of the pause is usually a little longer than the exhalation and inhalation in normal breathing. So you're breathing and you this breathing is energetically tied into this idea of expanding, taking in. When you're breathing in, you're drawing in. When you're breathing out, you're pushing away. When your lungs are empty, you're in a state of rest or equilibrium. You're resting in between each breath. So this all correlates to emotions. There's also the part where your lungs are inflated. So you're breathing in right there, breathing out, and then the pause. An exercise that I've done with people is what I call squaring the breath, which is make all of those even. Inhale for a count of 3 or 4 seconds, hold for the count of 3 or 4 seconds, exhale for the count of 3 or 4 seconds, pause for the count of 3 or 4 seconds. That helps center your emotions. That actually helps you get centered emotionally. By consciously taking control of your breathing, you're consciously taking control of your energetic state, which is actually helping put you into a balanced emotional area. And this also corresponds to the 4 elements. The inhalation is the water or yin phase. The air is the transition from yin to yang. The fire is the exhalation phase, which is the yang. The earth is the transition from yang back to yin. It's a cycle. And so this exercise of squaring your breath is another good breathing exercise to do. Just get in touch with your feelings. Now, what I want to do is, some of you may have been, if you've been listening to these programs, I introduced you to this wheel, which is on our new aromatherapy charts, new emotional healing charts. And these flower petals right here represent aspects of the energy cycle of the breath, moving around the 4 elements, moving around the yin or yang. Right here, the water element is yielding, peaceful, patient. Okay, it's cold and damp energetically. Opposite that is the fire energy, which is active, driven, and determined. This is an aggressive. This is a passive. Okay. The air is up here, awake, open, revived, and down here is stable, sensual, and rooted. So as you're breathing in, you're cycling through all of these energies. And distortion, when you're suppressing certain parts of your emotion, you're going to distort the cycle. You're going to distort the waveform. And as you distort the waveform, you experience a discord, an internal emotional discord. So the other 4 quadrants represent transitions between these things. So as you transition from the yin, the water, into the air, you get into an expansive, creative, open, free kind of thing. You move up into the air quadrant, and as you then start to exhale, you're moving into excitement and motivation, and then you go down as the lungs start to empty. It's kind of stable, practical, realistic, and then as the lungs begin to inflate again, relaxed, calm, and quiet. These are the qualities of the emotions, and it works with the breath too. I did it with the essential oils. It works with the breath. There's other applications I'd like to make to this chart, do some more charts. So I want to talk about a little bit of the energetics of some of these things, but I'm going to leave the PowerPoint for a minute. I'm glad that you someone made some comments that they got their charts and really liked them. I'm glad to hear that. I really had enjoyed making them. Okay, so one of the books that got me started in understanding this is this book, very interesting book, a little bit hard to understand. I'm not the biggest expert on body work, but he shows things like this, which is the 3 worlds of our being, the 3 chambers, the head chamber, the chest chamber, the abdominal chamber, and talks about these 3 cavities. And he also talks about, over here you can see these bands, like circles of things going inward energetically. And he shows in here patterns of stress. So for example, this is an example of someone who has a rigid personality. Okay, the rigidity in the body is a lack of yielding or flexibility in the person. And he shows this direction of the forces, the energetic movements or forces in the body, and how they react in the rigid person. He shows let's see if I can get some other ones. This is, you know, some of the different patterns he shows of energetics, and it's very interesting. And that kind of got me interested in looking at this, understanding how the body interacted. And then I found this book right here, which was probably one of the most eye-opening books in terms of the relationship between tension in the body and the being rigid and stuck in your emotions. All of this relates to a concept that I call body armor, which is the fact that you have, where you have tense muscles or where you have maybe excess weight, is all where you have some blockage in the normal flow of energy going through your body due to some ego structure you've created for yourself, that you are blocking certain aspects of your being. And so the whole idea of what I learned in emotional healing, and it's part of the 12-element model emotional anatomy system, it's part of the wheel, is that you should be able to cycle through all of the different aspects of our personality smoothly. When it's appropriate to get angry and be firm with people, you should be able to get angry and be firm with people. When it's appropriate to be kind or sweet, you should be able to be kind or sweet. When it's appropriate to be creative, you should be able to be creative. When it's appropriate to be practical, you should be able to be practical. But we get this structure that basically we deny certain parts of ourselves. We suppress those, which over-exaggerates the opposite characteristics. And we create an imbalance. Now, we have a little bit of a natural imbalance because we're all a little bit different. But when that happens to excess, it actually distorts the posture, movement, flow of our body and results in physical ailments taking place. This is the whole underlying, one of the underlying principles of emotional healing. So I want to read to you the intro of this book, because this is written by a French lady, and just listen to how she describes this. She says she's dedicating this to, first of all, Madame A well-known lawyer who confuses her self-image with her professional image and is afraid she'll lose her authority if she loses the stiffness in her neck and the aggressive expression on her face. To Admiral B, who, feeling on the decline at retirement age, learned how to breathe, to hold his head rather than his jaw high, and grew an inch and a half taller. To Mademoiselle C, who had her nose, her chin, her eyelids, and her breasts redone, but sheds genuine tears because she cannot redo her life. To D, who takes his body to be treated as a car to be repaired. Do whatever needs to be done. I don't want to know about it. But I have nothing to tell him that deep down inside, he doesn't already know. To Mademoiselle E, virgin and martyr, who for 40 years has been claiming she wants to get rid of her stomach, which bulges like that of a woman 6 months pregnant. Always smiling and seemingly cooperative, she refuses to make the changes that would deliver her. To Madame F, who hates her body, claims to adore people who don't resemble her, yet seeks only to humiliate them. To G, who as a teenager closed her eyes so successfully to herself that she managed to sleep 16 hours out of 24. Her shoulders drooping, the back of her neck hollow, her head flung back, she glided through life like a sleepwalker until one day in a mirror, she met up with an aging woman, eyes wide in disbelief. To Commandant de H, who regards his health as an affair of state, refusing to admit he's sick unless the national health insurance plan covers it. And if you can hear in that, it's a beautiful way of expressing how in the body, in the face, in the way we carry ourselves, etc., we are expressing unresolved issues of our ego. Our ego is the part of us that wants to say, I am like this, and this is what makes me different from other people, and this is what's making me better than other people, and this is why, because the ego wants to feel special, the ego wants to feel important, and that little egotistical part of ourselves has to put on a mask or a role or persona. And that persona that we put on, which is what we've decided we should be, understand? We've decided, I should be like this. I should control my temper, or I can't cry because, that would show weakness, but whatever those internal decisions are, they manifest in what we call body armor. The body then changes its structure, shape, and rigidity to express that inner emotional belief system of what I feel like I have to present to the world as a persona. And I put that mask on in my body. And that's where I have to learn to take that off. And another author that really, really helped me understand this was Alexander Lowen. And he wrote a lot of books. This was my favorite book of his, Love, Sex, and Your Heart. And this is where he explains about grief and how the heart is related to our ability to feel pleasure, because blood flow is intimately connected to pleasure. And he explains why when we're in love, we have a vasodilation that opens up the periphery of our body and so forth, and how when we grieve, we hold on to grief, we get into patterns of rigidity. This is another one of his books, Bioenergetics. And he shows what I'm trying to talk about right here in this little picture. He shows that this is actually the way things should be. We have our ego up here, our thought processes, our feeling, and our emotions, and our body presence. That's stable. That's strong. Who we are down here in our body. But what we do is we invert it. Ego becomes supreme. The ego controls our thinking, the ego controls our emotions, and the body gets relegated to this teeny little thing at the bottom, and we are out of touch with ourselves, with who we are. And some of the things I learned as far as exercises of how to break through body armor, I got from Alexander Lowen and from The Body Has Its Reasons and some of these other books that basically talk about it. So let's talk a little bit about the energetics of anger and how anger affects the body. A couple of people have basically mentioned about the energetic, sorry, about tension in your shoulders. All right. So let's talk about the energetic pattern for anger. Okay. I have to build up energy when I'm angry, because what I want to do, I'm pulling in, I'm building up the energy, sucking in my energy. And then as I suck in the energy, I'm tensing up, because what I want to do is I want to push away. The whole energy of anger is I want to get rid of something. I want something out of my life. I don't like it. It doesn't serve me. It bothers me, and I want to get rid of it. So I tense these muscles right here. These muscles are pulling back, cocking, okay, in order to drive forward like this or like this, okay? Push, shove, get away, okay? And so these muscles cock right here. The stomach sucks upward as the body, gets ready to go, and then the discharge is this force of exhalation, right? And okay, I want to punch, I want to bubble. So anger is a very yang energy bursting out, okay, in this sudden force thing. Well, when you suppress the anger, all this tension here remains stuck, and you wind up with this chronic tension in your neck and shoulders. And you start, because you can't say no, because you can't reject what doesn't serve you, you wind up with this heavy weight on your shoulders. There's this burden you're carrying around all the time. This sense that and the head tends to bow forward too, because you're defeated. You're like, so when I'm demonstrating this in classes, I look for the people who have rounded, slumping shoulders like this, because I know that they're repressing anger. I know that their ego structure is, I've got to be nice. I can't be angry. I can't say no. That's not nice, blah, 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 blah. And they've got that tension held in their neck, their shoulders. So we have to break through that body armor. And I got some of these ideas from Alexander Lowen's book, which is, so since this is a holding back, this tension back here is a holding back of that wanting to punch or hit or kick something, you break through the armor by punching, hitting, or kicking. You suck in your breath and Alexander Lowen suggested getting like a tennis racket or a bat or a stick, putting a bunch of pillows on the bed and going whack, whack, whack. Well, the thing is if you are the person who's suppressed your anger, you'll try to do that, and it'll feel so awkward. If you feel so like weird, I mean, I did. You feel really, really weird because I can't do this. I can't, because you spent a whole lifetime holding that energy that makes you want to do that back. Now, so the tennis racket thing is okay, or just you can just raise your fists above your head and I kneel beside the side of the bed and put some pillows on the side of your bed and go wham like that. Get a punching bag if you want to, or go take a self-defense class that teaches you how to fight. When we have people who can't forgive someone who's really, really seriously abused them, what we learn to do is, before they could forgive, we want to help them acknowledge the anger, the pain, the suffering this person caused them, so that then they can experience it, understand it, and then let go of it. You can't let go of something that you're denying you have. If I'm denying that I'm angry at this person who abused me and did these things to me, and I've stuffed this anger inside of me for years, how can I forgive it, which is the process of letting go of it? If I don't even own it, how can I let go of something that I don't even acknowledge that is there? So what we do is we erect some kind of effigy that represents the person. We maybe make a little paper thing and put a picture of their face on top of it, and we have the person throw rocks at it. Or one ritual that my students here did with someone who we were working with, they took and made images. They clipped them out of like magazine or pulled them off the internet. There was alcohol associated with her abuse, because the abusers were drinking. It was done in a barn, so there was straw. And so they got pictures of like the beer cans and pictures of the straw in the barn and all of these things associated with this. And they had her go out and rip these things up and stomp on them and yell and blah, 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 to break through the body armor. And part of this is the screaming. Now, one of the things we normally, when we do emotional healing work, we try to do it like after hours or in a room where it's okay for people to cry or scream or whatnot. Because a good thing to do if you've done a lot of repressing of anger is also to go, Now, if you're in a place you can't do this because you're living in an apartment complex, you just do it like this. You adopt the body posture of screaming, but you don't scream. Chopping wood, anything like that. I mean, one of the suggestions is demolish something. Okay, so you can't like go break your neighbor's buildings, but if there's like we just had my front porch was just horribly built by the person who owned the house before me. He used 2x4s for the supports instead of bigger boards. He spaced them too far apart. He stuck the posts in the ground so the bottom would start to rot out. The whole thing was shaky and whatever. So we just ripped it all out, sledgehammer, blah, blah, blah. Doing something like that. And thinking about the frustration you feel over things that have done to you or whatever, what you're doing is you're regaining the ability to be angry. Now, I'm going just from very, very personal, pragmatic thing. I knew that I needed these things. And so I started practicing some of this, like hitting the pillows, blah, blah, and it was very awkward at first. And, but at a certain point, I broke through the body armor. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like I took the lid off of something that I had been stuffing for years. And when I did, I felt all this anger that I had been in denial of for a long, long period of time. And I realized that part of the reason why I was in denial of that anger is because I thought that if I ever let myself feel that anger, I would be abusive. But I'm not an abusive person. So it didn't make me abusive. But what it did make is it made me determined never to let people get away with that kind of nonsense again. I am now to the point where if someone's going to, do something, I'm going to fight back. I'm not going to, and if you've broken through your body armor and you've gotten it out of your system, you don't lose your temper over it either. It's a temporary, quick thing. You forcefully speak your mind. You say no. You say, okay. Because if you don't know how to get in touch with this anger, your no is a maybe. When you tell someone no, they hear in your voice that there's no resolve. There's no backing up. No way I'm going to let you do that. No way I'm going to allow that. They hear this like, no, please, no. And there's no power in that. There's no anger in that. There's nothing that says, don't mess with me. But once you get in touch with that part of yourself, you can go, no, absolutely not. Shut up. Okay. And people feel it and they respond to it. And what I found is that since I used to have abusive people who take advantage of me would come into my life a lot. But as I worked through all this, that stopped happening. And I realized something. Predators are attracted to easy prey. In nature, predators seek out the young, they seek out the sick animals, the elderly animals, and so forth. Well, human predators seek out people who are putting out the energy of, I'm nice, I don't fight back, blah, blah. Okay. And so you can be a nice person, you can be a good person, but you can still get a hold of anger. Okay. That people pleaser. So people who have that energy really, really need those exercises. Okay. Before I move on, I'm going to look at some of the things. Someone says, I've done anger workshops and we used phone books and plastic plumbing pipe. Someone said, I had a friend beat a pillow until she got so mad she went crazy for 15 minutes. Well, okay. Someone's asked about a cyst on the back of the neck. That's possible because a cyst is something, dark and negative that you're holding on to. But the dowager's hump, that is one of the major things that happens when you are not allowing yourself to be able to express your anger. Okay. And I noticed some of you put up some of the things of the body armor. The TMJ is also the clenching of the jaw, not allowing yourself to say what you want to say. Okay. Someone said the cats used to look at me like crazy when I do these exercises. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good. I had someone I was helping with on the telephone, and I told her, you need to go in the woods, because she was in a place where she couldn't do this, and just start screaming. If I've been through what you've been through, I would need to scream. Everybody, you have to be able to let your body move. See, the children are free. Their bodies are flexible. They're flowing. They're graceful. Alexander Lowen talks about this. They live in a state of grace. Their bodies flow. They move fluidly and easily. Animals, the same way. They move fluidly and easily. But we learn, to stuff our feelings, deny our feelings, hold back our feelings, blah, blah, blah. And then what happens, we start getting all this armor, and then we walk awkwardly, we move awkwardly. There's all this stiffness and rigidity and so forth in our bodies that we're holding on to because of all this emotional stuff. Now, grieving has an opposite breathing pattern to anger, because anger is pushing away, grieving is longing for something, desiring something, missing something. Grieving does help let go, but the inhalation on grieving is forced. See, there's a struggle to draw in, and this long, slow which is a relieving process. And Alexander Lowen explains in this book that when a person doesn't grieve, when they don't go through that the sobbing convulsions of grief, their energy remains pulled inward, and they develop a hard shell around themselves. Their blood pressure goes up, and their heart becomes more tense, more rigid, less flexible, because they begin to lose empathy. And in that rigid personality, there'll be this tension here in the chest that doesn't allow them to go. See, the movement of grieving is a convulsing through here, not from back here, but from here. So the tension runs across here, and he recommends this exercise, which I haven't, I've only tried it a couple of times, which is to have this person who's got really, really bad body armor. You basically get a stool, you put a towel or a blanket wrapped around it, and you basically bend them over it. You can have somebody hold onto their arms, but he says he's had men who were like, excuse me, completely rigid, wouldn't cry at all. In about 5 minutes, they're blubbering like a baby because they feel so helpless and vulnerable. So the grieving process, it involves a breath of letting go. And that's why exhalation is important in grieving. If I'm trying to coach someone to grieve, to release something, I coach them to exhale deeply. So you go like this. You want to empty your lungs as much as possible. There's an energetic thing going on here. When I'm stuck in grief, I'm holding on to what was lost. I can't let go of it. And because I can't let go of it, there's no space for something to come in and take its place. When you empty your lungs, okay, if you really concentrate on pushing all the air out of your lungs get so empty, and then there's a natural shifting that you then open up. Okay. So, but if you're holding out, there's no space for the new to come in. And so you have to create space. Letting go creates space. And so the grieving process is a process of emptying out, not hanging on to, because as you hang on to things, you lose space to draw new things into your life. Anger, you're wanting to push things away, but in grief, you want something. You're longing for something. You're longing for the person who you loved that you lost. You're longing for the job you lost, the house you lost, the car you lost, the whatever, the innocence you lost, whatever you lost, you're longing for it. But in your mind, you're stuck in your ego holding on to this stuff. And then, so there's no space for anything new to be let into your life because you're holding on to the past. So as you go through a grieving breath, you open up space, and that allows energetically for new good things to come in to replace the old things that you lost. So when you do letting go rituals, you do things to let things go. One of my midwife friends did an exercise where she wrote little things problems she had with, one of her sons on little balloons, stuck them in the balloons, filled them full of helium, tied them in strings to the fence, and then went by with a pair of scissors and said, God, he was yours before he was mine. I'll release all of these problems and things I don't like to you. You take them away. Boom. It's symbolic. And so you can write the things that you want to let go of on a piece of paper and burn them. You can write the things you want to let go of on a piece of paper and bury them. You can put them in the balloons and release them. If it's a really good idea to get rid of things that are reminding you of negative things in your past. If you have, let's say that you had I had a business relationship with someone that I broke up because I didn't like the way they were doing things. And they had given me some really nice things. And I just gave them all away. I didn't energetically want anything that was connected to that. I wanted to let it go. And that can be true for a breakup, whatever. Too much, we tend to hang on to these things. Someone will die and they'll just leave the room, just like it was, so I can remember, blah, blah, blah. But that holding on to forever blocks you from letting new love, new joy come in. So particularly with death, okay? It's really, it's okay to allow for a year for grieving. But at the end of a year, you need to do a healing ritual and let go of it. It's time to just get rid of most of the stuff, that person had if you hadn't already gotten rid of it. And then you take something that reminds you of them, you burn it, and you watch the smoke go up to heaven. You throw it in a river and watch the water carry it away. You dig it in a hole and bury it to be recycled, or you give stuff away to charity. You don't sell it. You don't have a garage sale. If you have a garage sale, you're exchanging. You're still hanging on to it. You need to just give it away. You have to release it. You have to make space. That is what you do with grieving rituals. So, breaking down the body armor for that. Now, so I understood grief. I understood anger, and I knew how to coach people through the breathing patterns. And I knew how to break through the body armor. But fear, I thought, well, what is the movement in the body, and what is the thing that's associated with fear? How does fear discharge itself through the system? And actually, I think that there's, a lot of other subtle emotions that discharge in other ways that I don't have time to get into. I mean, you can, get into looking at this, and you'll also become familiar with it as you work with people, seeing where they hold tension and having them get into this. But fear puzzled me. And then I read Peter Levine's books on the trauma and trauma vortex, and understood the freeze response. The freeze response is one of the mechanisms of the how we respond to danger. The fight is the anger, aggressive. The flight is the grieving, letting go, moving away from. But the actual buried stress itself manifests as freezing, which means the body is alert, ready to do something, fight or run away, but instead it freezes. And it freezes in a high state of tension. It becomes rigid. And some people are never able to fully discharge that freeze response. And so they remain just like stuck and have a hard time with any kind of flexibility in their body. And the way that that discharges is through involuntary trembling. And that is one of the things that, I can demonstrate grieving, and I can demonstrate anger, but I've never figured out how to demonstrate this because I can't do it. I can't voluntarily do it. I literally watched the muscles, all the muscles in the body are quivering like this, like the arms and everything. And once I did that, I started to spot that in people I was working with. I'd see their muscles quivering, and I'd say, just see that, feel that shaking? Let it happen. Just shake. Just let it. So I guess I can demonstrate it because you exaggerate it. Once you get in touch with it, you okay. Feels like you're going crazy. And I consciously engaged that because I had I recognized that my mom, when I was young, and she was angry with me because she was a little bit crazy, it terrified me. And I had learned to freeze because it was the only thing I could do. And so in relationships with adult women, when a woman was angry with me, I would freeze. I would, like my brain would go blank. I couldn't think of anything. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And I realized I had a freeze reaction in response to anger to women. So I started to try to tune into that fear and then let my body shake and deliberately allow it to shake that off. And after doing that for a little while, I found that when a woman was mad with me, I could engage that. I could engage in that process of, okay, you're angry, blah, blah, blah. What are you about? Without losing my ability to think, without being clear, I could remain, I didn't go into cognitive dissonance. When you have an issue with something, you go into cognitive dissonance. Your brain gets all confused. You're mixed up. You don't know how to respond. You can't say what you think, blah, blah, blah. And that cognitive dissonance, which is associated with trauma vortexes, is one of the things that is a sign that there's fear that needs to be let go of. So what we did is we designed a little ritual with this where, and we do this in classes, where you just get up and you just, someone mentioned like dancing, wiggling your body, just wiggling your body, blah, 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 which is a way of kind of, and it looks really crazy, and it feels really crazy, but you're letting yourself be crazy, okay? And as you're doing this, it's unwinding all this tension from feeling stuck and frozen. You've got to get back into moving, flowing, and it actually releases a lot of this tension and allows a person to get past that. And deep breathing helps. Again, the squaring your breath helps put you in more centered places and so forth, and that will help you process that too. Now, there's been quite a few comments as I've been doing this. I haven't been reading because this is all obviously very, demonstrative thing. And I want to do some videos showing the stuff that you do for anger, the standing your ground exercises, the things we teach in live classes. And I just haven't been able to get to it. I will get to it. We'll eventually get that up on the YouTube channel too, so we can demonstrate that. It does help to go through classes. Now, rituals for facing your fear have to do with basically deliberately learning to confront things that you're afraid of. Because fear paralyzes you. Fear makes you stuck. And so if you are continually stuck and you can't move forward and you can't get where you want to go and whatever, you're paralyzed with fear. So what you do is you take something that you're afraid of that's not life-threatening. That's not, obviously it's healthy to have a fear of someone shooting you or jumping off a cliff or something like that. But, like standing up in public or saying hi to women. When I was taking some dating coaching, the guy was mentioning approach anxiety in men, that men are afraid to go up and start a conversation with a woman, So, and some people use little gimmicks or gags or whatever to get over approach anxiety, which is a form of fear that paralyzes you from talking to somebody. And one of the authors said, okay, so you start with something simple. You just start saying hi to women, meaning you're just passing someone on the street. Hi. That might not work in New York City, but or at the grocery counter, just say, hi, how are you today? Hi. Just get over it, over it. Make yourself do something in spite of the fear. So any kind of healing ritual you would design on fear involves taking some small fear and deliberately confronting it and doing something in the face of the fear. So you learn to unstick the freeze response and allow yourself to move through the fear. Okay. Okay. Cash says, what you teach is really similar to what Ocean.org on the podcast. It is Tibetan yoga meditation to feel your emotions in the body, and the body is the key to spiritual experience. That the body is a reflection of the universe, and you won't find joy, happiness, or spirituality transforming without exploring the body and its pain and rigidity. And that's exactly one of the things I'm saying. If you've got pain or rigidity in your body, that area of your body is holding on to emotions that you do not want to experience. So you have to get in, feel it, breathe with it, move with it, put your focus there and tune into it so that you bring your awareness to it so that you're able to work through it. because the very core thing that goes way back to the first lessons I did with this back in module 1 earlier this year is what you run away from will haunt you forever. What you have the courage to confront, and especially, prayerfully confront, you have the power to overcome and transform. Okay. And especially if you bring and ask God for help in dealing with it, you'll get the help you need, and you have the courage to just face it and move through it. Okay, now what happens is, someone asked, what if someone's response to all emotions, fear, anger, and grief, is to cry? What happens is when there's some emotion that we learn that it's safe to express for most of us. Maybe someone grew up in a family where the only emotion that was safe to express was anger. Another person, the only emotion that was safe to express was grief. So, or another person, freezing, which is, expressing fear, was the only emotion that was safe for them. So what happens is you have a primary presenting emotion, like you cry a lot, and you think that that's the problem. But one of the things I was trying to teach in this is that the real problem is the opposite emotions, the emotions on the other side of the scale, because they're the ones that are being suppressed. In other words, if you're crying, you're not acknowledging your fear or your anger. So what you have to do is break through the body armor that allows you to experience your fear and your anger and express that. That will balance out the crying. So there's a primary emotion you express, a secondary emotion that's easier to get in touch with, and the third one in that grief, fear, anger triangle is the one that's the hardest for you to get at. All right? So you have to dive down below the tears into what's behind that, which may be anger, maybe fear, experience that, and then through that one, you get down into the next one. And then that allows you to go back to be able to feel the full range of emotions, which basically allows you to move through life and stops you from, basically being frozen. Someone said, I have some people who owe me money too. One person over $400 since 2003, but I just let it go now. God will take care of it. Now, see, that's what you do. If you just literally let go of it and you just sit out there, okay, whatever. That's forgiveness, giving away. Okay, I'll give it away. No problem. I don't need it back. Until you give it away, until you give a for, and release it, there is no room for anything to come back and take its place. Because energetically, you're still holding on to it. And you're still waiting for that other person to change or whatever, which is impossible. But if you learn to release it, let go of it, grieve through it, go work through the anger or whatever about it, and then just release it, it opens the space for something new to come in and take its place. Oh, someone said they took their dog to the vet and the dog's whole body vibrated while they were waiting to see the vet. So the dog was going through a fear reaction, that spontaneous trembling. Animals will do it, without censoring it, which we learned to censor it. Okay, what if someone is grieving something they never had? Yeah, you let go of the expectation. You acknowledge the pain you feel of not having that, and you do the releasing breath, okay? Because you have to make space, and that space comes with a release. The peace is experienced when I can fill my lungs, feel the fullness of my life, let go, and then empty my lungs and be empty or quiet. And it's in that place that you actually can then create the ability to get what you want. When you're trying to create what you want with fear or with anger or with sadness, you never get it. The only way to draw something positive into your life is to get into the place of peace and inner joy and inner love. And from that place, you go after what you want, and then you really get it. You might get something like, okay, let's just say, for example, we're talking about a relationship. You want to have a really healthy relationship. You've never had a really healthy relationship before. Okay. Well, if you're approaching wanting a relationship out of trying to fix your fear, trying to fix your grief, trying to fix, your loneliness, you will attract, all you will attract is an equal dysfunction to the emotional energy you're putting behind seeking for that relationship. If you can get to the place of inner peace, and from there seek a relationship, you'll get a relationship that is actually healthy based on the inner peace and love. That's what I learned. I had to, in order to get a good relationship, I had to shift my own internal energy, and then I was able to attract something that was more of what I want. Nobody's ever going to be like perfect, because you're not perfect, but you actually can attract something that works better. Okay. What do you do when a relative comes to you for help, but they don't have a place to go and they need money in a check, but they need cash now? So you help them with cash, the understanding that they get the cash back with their check cash, but when the cash check, it only brought 1/3 of the money they owe. You're nice, blah, 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 knowing karma, da, 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 da. Yeah, okay. All right. So let me explain what this. I can't answer what specifically you should do in a specific situation. That's really you working that out inside of yourself. But let me tell you what I learned to do. When someone asks me for something, okay, I look inside of myself and I ask myself this question. If I do this for this person and they never do what they're promising they'll do back for me, will I be okay with that? And if the answer is no, I don't do it. I'm either going to do it out of love because I want to, or I'm not going to do it at all. And that's how I've learned to avoid the kind of situations you're talking about. I literally now tell people no if I don't feel like I can do it and be able to let go of it and be okay with it if the other person doesn't follow through. Now, if the other person, if I do it and they have said that they're going to do something for me and they don't, then I don't ever make that deal with them again. I let it go because I'm just going to do it because I'm going to be good about it, but I will never trust them again unless they make good on their commitment. People mistake forgiveness for trust. Trust is something you earn. Forgiveness is something you do as an act of love. So it's something that's a big difference. Someone said that when they lose a pet, they bury all their toys with them. And a lot of Native people did that. They buried a person's possessions with them. And I've read that certain tribes, when their parents died, they burned everything their parents had rather than quarrel over it. You know how many families are destroyed quarreling over their parents' inheritance, squabbling over who gets what, which is none of which is letting go. Okay. So stretching, yoga, anything that does that kind of thing that gets you in touch with your body. That's what Teresa Bernhardt's talking about in The Body Has Its Reasons. She's got tons of exercises in here for learning to tune into your body and feel the tension in your body and be able to let go of that. And so I am not a good bodywork person. I mean, I keep learning things as I go along, but it's not my expertise. But if any of you are massage therapists or do any kind of that kind of thing, this kind of thing would be right up your alley. You learn to work on the actual tension. You can help a person unwind their emotional stress. If you're stuck in all three emotions, that is that you've learned to suppress everything. The first thing I would work on, that's where we actually do, muscle testing and see what energy centers to work on. But probably what you would need to work on the most is fear or anger. because being completely paralyzed is most likely fear. And so I would say fear would be the one that you'd probably want to try working on first. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I'm really I've become a little bit of I don't know. I used to be such a doormat. I used to feel so guilty if I said no to anybody. But you know, what I finally realized when I got in touch with my anger is saying yes when you really would rather say no does not do you any good and does not do them any good, because anything that you can't do out of a place of peace and love in your heart and be fine with it will not benefit anyone. If you're doing it from feeling resentful that you're doing it, or feeling like I'm going to feel like I'm a bad person if I don't do it, so you're doing it out of a place of ego, it will not really truly benefit you, and it will not benefit them, because what you're doing is enabling their dysfunction. Anytime that you're genuinely helping someone, helping them from the place of divine peace and love within, from your own connection to God, you will have a complete feeling of peace and love in doing it, and you won't care whether they respond or don't respond. Hopefully we'll talk more about that when we get into the deeper aspects of energetic anatomy in the next lesson. But you know, it's a really important thing to be aware of. And I didn't have time to go through everything that everybody said, and we're out of time today. There is no class next week, if I remember correctly, because I will have just gotten back from the Nature Sunshine Convention. That's right. And so we again have a 2-week break before the final lesson in this class. And that lesson is on, this is about the body part of this. That lesson is about what we call symbolic journeys and mental tools, which is a mental process of working through emotions. And that stuff is really powerful and very amazing. So I think you'll be equally blown away with some of the things we've learned with that. And I also want to remind anybody that the emotional healing charts are shipping out. They're awesome. They look wonderful. They're really great tools. That this is all going to help you in doing this work. And also that I'm teaching module 4 of my Fundamentals of Natural Healing class. And that will start later this month. Module 4 is $75. This particular Fundamentals of Natural Healing class, this module 4, is on mental and emotional healing. And it's going to cover stuff that I'm not covering in this free online training, which is about understanding hormones and neurotransmitters and that biochemical process involved in, depression, anxiety, that sort of thing. And, what different drug medications do with that, and then how you use herbs and nutritional supplements to help that more physical biochemical part of it. We don't cover that in this class. So if you want to get that, that's only $75, and that's a complement to the rest of this. And then, of course, after that next lesson, we will get into the deep emotional anatomy part with the 12 energy centers and really go into depth on the energetic models behind this. So I appreciate everyone who can support us with doing these classes. We're struggling still to get ourselves out into a positive cash flow. So any of you who can join the member program or make a donation or anything, it's greatly appreciated if you could help. Thanks for being part of the class, and I'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. Good night.